had moderately high hopes when I heard that there was a flirty sword fight in the 2012 film Mirror Mirror, and I saw some abbreviated clips on the interwebs and I thought to myself, you know what, that doesn't look too bad. I should have moderated my expectations, honestly. If we haven't met, I'm Jill Bearup. I'm an actor combatant and accidental Barnes & Noble best-selling author. This video is sponsored by the book which I wrote. More on that anon. And while I have a terrible weakness for flirty sword fights in film, apparently I also have exacting standards. This doesn't work for me, but I am going to explain why. For those of you unfamiliar, the plot of Mirror Mirror goeth thusly. It's Snow White. It's just Snow White, but they gave it the Shrek treatment. Fine. The evil queen, played by Julia Roberts, marries King Sean Bean and he goes into the forest and there's a monster and he disappears. Julia Roberts has been queen ever since and Snow White, the king's daughter, has been confined to the palace. One day when she turns 18, Snow White finds her courage and leaves the palace. She also finds a half-dressed prince from another kingdom. It is alleged that he might be charming, but more importantly discovers that her people are suffering, and so she decides to ask the prince for help at a ball that she sneaks into. But it doesn't go well. She is taken into the woods to be killed as per the original fairy tale, but she meets the dwarves, I'm not entirely sure, and via a brief training montage they turn her into a sword-wielding badass. Sure. The prince comes into the forest to look for the bandits and finds her. They have a fight. It's a thing. Eventually, the evil queen puts a spell on the prince so that he will fall in love with her and marry her. Snow White kidnaps him and breaks the spell via true love's kiss, which is not at all weird. No, it's not weird. Anyway, they fight the monster in the woods and then Snow White goes, oh my goodness, let's just destroy that magical talisman around its neck and oh, it's Dad! The queen dies due to magical backlash, I guess. Snow White and the prince get married and everyone lives happily ever after. Except Julia Roberts. Before anyone decides to come to the comment section to tell me things about Armie Hammer, please be advised that that is not relevant to this movie fight analysis. We are talking about the movie and the characters and what they are doing, which, trust me, is painful enough without real life intruding. When I started scripting this, I had intended to break down the choreography first and then give commentary, but I can't. It's just too painful. We're just gonna have to do it all in one shot, so bear with me. Begin. As is traditional for a flirty fight between a man and a woman, the initial aggression is all on Snow's side. She attacks and he parries, high, low, high, and then we cut away for some amazing acrobatics. 3 moves, short, to the point, perfectly fine opening phrase, except for one thing which I have noticed, which I will now torture you with. Snow White is played by Lily Collins, who doesn't seem to have much fencing or stage fighting experience, which is not necessarily a problem since Snow White is also new to being a sword-wielding menace, but since she's Snow White, they've obviously made her up to be very pale and she has these enormous dark eyes and these very dark eyelashes, and she shuts her eyes when the swords make contact. From a character point of view, it's fine if she occasionally closes her eyes and winces because the swords are making contact. She is very new to this. From a stage combat point of view, it makes me feel a little unsafe. You should ideally be keeping an eye on your partner so you don't impale them. And if this were a real fight, you'd have to keep your eyes on your opponent so that you could more effectively impale them. The prince at least keeps his eyes open, so good job there.
You're a traitor.
And you're a jerk!
The dialogue, I have to say, is generally not stellar. Some of it is fine, and some of it is not so fine, but overall, the average is not high. The thing is, you can have a really good flirty fight without any dialogue at all. Please see the Wilkinson sword advert that I once did a review of. But if you're going to have dialogue, it should at least enhance the experience. On the other hand, we get a circular parry. I love a circular parry, even if it is a hugely telegraphed circular parry, and then a couple more parries from the prince. Snow spins! The prince does an unnecessarily fancy behind the back parry. Why not, I guess. The thing is, because it's a flirty fight, you can actually get away with this. In any other kind of fight, it would instantly be just, why? Why would you do that? But flirty fights are inherently kind of silly, and when there is a strength and skill disparity this great, it's absolutely fine that he's just kind of doing silly things. And also that she is doing silly things, because she doesn't know any better. She swipes for his head, he ducks, parry, parry again, and then he cuts off her hair bubble. Hot, I guess? Never mind. Let us note instead that this is the first aggressive move he has made towards her. It's not actually that aggressive, and we are about 10 moves into the fight, so good. I said in my Pride and Prejudice and Zombies video that when you have two characters having a flirty fight and there is a very large disparity, that it speaks better of the more powerful or skilled character if they don't want to engage. Darcy versus Lizzie in an unarmed fight, he is going to wipe the floor with her. She may have the fancy martial arts training, but so does he. And he's so much bigger than her. In an unarmed fight where there are no force multipliers, no. No, it's just not happening. And this doesn't just apply to large, skilled man fights smaller but still skilled woman. It applies to an expert fighting a beginner, or a very big, broad dude fighting a short, skinny dude, or an adult fighting a child. Just anywhere where you can see that this person should clearly win. If you want us to like the more powerful character, you have to make them reluctant to engage. Because otherwise they just look like a bully who enjoys picking on weaker people. If the stronger character reacts, at least initially, with poise and calm and confidence, rather than overreaction and aggression, we will think better of them.
That's enough. Stop this at once. Can't fight you.
Why not?
Reacting with condescension, like the prince does here, makes it seem more of a parent-child or expert beginner kind of dynamic. If you want them to be love interests, you need to have them not be contemptuous of each other. Regardless, Snow, the prince doesn't want to fight you. What are you going to do?
Because you're a girl. I don't fight girls.
Beat swipe. Okay, yeah, sure. It does make him move, to be fair. I mean, the point of a beat is to take the point offline so that you can attack, or to provoke a reaction from your opponent. I wonder if this might have been a good place to introduce like a torn sleeve, or something like that. Something that will make him take her more seriously. Because he says,
perhaps I should reconsider.
There's nothing inherently more aggressive about this phrase that would make him engage. I'm just saying. That is my only criticism of the choreography so far, honestly, that I would have had her tear his shirt sleeve or something like that at this point. Regardless, we have now changed their dynamics, so she attacks low and he attacks high. She swipes for his feet, he swipes across her body, she retreats, he swipes back again, and she parries in the middle of her body? I don't know. They spin around each other and meet in midair. She attacks low and he disarms her. Because listen, he's a jerk and kind of a condescending one, but he doesn't actually want to hurt her. Right? The sword apparently goes a really long way, because then she traverses to avoid his swipe. I don't know, maybe he does want to hurt her after all. And then she jumps and rolls. And then he follows in an unnecessarily fancy way. At least he has deigned to take his coat off at this point. Brief cut to what the dwarfs are doing, and we are back. There's a little back and forth attack, parry, riposte, parry, riposte. The prince spins, there's some fighting amongst the trees, I like that, use of environment. And she goes for his feet, again, variety is good here. And then she runs past him? I don't know, maybe she's trying to run at him to stab him and he just moves to the side and grabs her sword? I'm not really sure, that one's not very clearly shot. He takes her arm up behind her back and now they are what would be tantalizingly face to face if these characters had personalities which weren't boiled white rice and mayonnaise. That is my opinion anyway. Maybe you can feel the sizzling chemistry and tension between these characters, but I do not. Like, is there anything there? No. While we're here, they've added in a lot of noises that Snow White makes in the course of this fight, and this one in particular just doesn't work on a whole new level because it sounds angry, but you can see her face quite clearly and she just looks open-mouthed. This is kind of a problem with Snow White in this movie. She wanders through most of it with this sort of kind of look, you know, like she's a particularly vacant version of Christine Daae. I'm all for characters who are sweet and naive and innocent and good, but you need to feel like there's something going on under the surface. You need to feel like there is some kind of passion or enthusiasm for life happening there. It helps me, at least, to feel that a character's goodness is a choice made out of deep conviction and not just because they are too stupid and vacant to make evil choices. That's not how humans work. It is very easy to do bad things. It is not actually easy to be a good person. We need at least a little bit of evidence that they feel the feelings and they feel the hurts, but they choose to do good regardless. Speaking of feeling feelings but doing things regardless, it is time for a brief interruption to tell you that Just Stab Me Now has actually been published. Like, it's not up for pre-order anymore, you can just buy it! And it is well on the way to fulfilling the approximately 17,000 pre-orders that we got. That's a lot. That's a lot of pre-orders. I would also like to thank the Dutch for putting my book in the #1 spot in the humor category on Dutch Amazon. I don't really understand either, but you know what? It works. I'm happy for it. We are also back on the Barnes & Noble bestseller list, though we have not reached the dizzying heights of #1 in paperbacks and #2 overall like we did when the pre-orders first went up. If this interruption is confusing to you, you probably don't watch YouTube shorts, which is fair enough. In 2022, I made a series about Caroline, who's trying to write a fantasy romance novel, and Rosamund, her recalcitrant heroine, and the arguments they had with each other, basically. as the plot progressed. And then everyone said you should write a book. So I did. And it's now been published, hooray! Anyway, this is just to let you know that it is out now if you would like to buy it. And also to say that if you do buy it and you like it, and you would like to leave a review, that would be super duper helpful. People making YouTube videos are always like and subscribe because it helps the algorithm, and it's not really, sort of, a little bit, but leaving reviews on books actually really does help the algorithm. If you read the book and you want to leave a review, I would really appreciate it. Thanks so much. Okay, let's get back to it. Where were we?
The Queen did say you were crazy.
She also said I was dead!
I mean, yes, that is true, but I feel like we don't really return to this point even in the next dialogue section. I feel like the discussion of the fact that the Queen is lying doesn't really land, but we'll get there in a second. Cut away for some more stunt action, including a George of the Jungle joke.
Watch out for that tree!
And we're back. Did he really just smack her on the behind with the flat of the sword? Right. Alright, we are then distracted from this by just... Oh, okay, this hurts me, and now it's gonna hurt you too. Please note what is supposed to be happening here. What is supposed to be happening here, I think, is that she attacks him and he kind of spins out of the way and does a fancy parry. What happens is that she has her eyes on his sword, which is already in position well away from his body, and she attacks his sword. There then follows a truly very nice sequence, marred only by the stupid dialogue.
The Queen has you in her thrall, can't you see she's manipulating you?
That is absurd.
Where Snow White attacks and the prince just kind of walks away while parrying in a very nonchalant fashion.
The Queen would be just fine if you and your friends stopped robbing her.
The dialogue though. And then a disarm to coincide with his... zinger? I can't tell you exactly why I don't like this dialogue, but it just isn't working. We cut away again, and when we cut back she is running towards his sword. But he picks up both of the swords, and now he has two. Again, really? Okay, well we have at least got good use of environment and the fact that you are being underestimated, but he is still not going to take you seriously.
Yield.
Shall we help her?
Glad you come to your side.
Really not taking you seriously. There is an attempted stab and then the prince dips her. Snow, love, you have two swords and you're acting like you're afraid of them. I mean, they're scary because they're swords, I get that, but
I guess I better keep trying then.
Okay, this one they probably should have shot again because it's just one move, and look at where the sword is. Her sword is on the inside of his sword. Her sword should be in his neck right now. He has parried on the wrong side. Never mind, there is a cute little dancey bit. And then she cuts him, I think, on his left hand, so he has to be right-handed again because he's been hand swapping because we're fancy like that, which changes the tone again.
Please forgive me.
No, forgive me.
He disarms her and then they circle and he tells her to yield again, and then she picks up a rock and then he makes fun of her and then she uses her environment. And Finn.
Why do you have to be so darn cute?
Young lady, you do not get to have a witty closing line. That's not a witty closing line, but even if it were, you don't get to have a witty closing line. You won by the skin of your teeth. I don't really feel like you've earned it. The thing is, having watched this entire fight, the choreography is actually, generally speaking, really fun. It's very solidly put together. The choreography tells a really good story about these two characters and what they want and what their relationship is to each other. Who did the choreo for this? To IMDb. Jean Frenette, apparently. I might be pronouncing that wrong, but anyway. Good job, Jean Frenette. The editing is a little fast for my personal taste, but it's very kind of standard Hollywood editing. It's generally fairly easy to see what's going on, with a couple of exceptions, and there's nothing really to complain about with the editing. There is nothing to complain about with the choreography. And even in the physical performance of the choreography, there's not loads that's wrong. I mean, Snow White could maybe use a little bit of help, but generally not bad, and you can get away with a lot more, as I said, in a flirty fight than you can in a fight that's supposed to be to the death. But I just don't care about these characters. I don't like the prince, and I don't have any connection to Snow White because she doesn't have a personality. Or if she does, she hides it very well. Very briefly, let me tell you the choreography story. Snow is angry with the prince. He is a bit confused, but he doesn't want to fight her. He takes out her hair tie to try and show he means business, but otherwise he's just not up for it. She insists, though, and so he starts to fight back and quickly disarms her. She avoids him and retrieves her blade. He comes after her, but he's starting to enjoy himself now. This is kind of fun. And so he plays with her and he pulls her in instead of disarming her. Like, he's showing off how easy this is for him, but also she's a pretty girl and he likes to play. He disarms her again and then he just keeps playing with her, and when she falls over and she makes the big doe eyes, he offers her the opportunity to surrender because, again, he likes her. She fights back with Snow, appropriately. Okay, here's kind of where the choreography compounds the problem that I have with the prince. But it didn't have to be this way. He goes in close to antagonize her further. He dips her and he takes the swords back, but then she injures him, which hurts his feelings, so he ends it. Except she's more resourceful than he thought, and so he ends up being beaten. Beautiful. Nicely done. Love it. But Snow is so one note, and the prince is so unlikable as a character. It's not doing anything for me. So I hold the very controversial opinion that The Last Jedi was a movie that I enjoyed watching. You wouldn't think that would be a controversial opinion, but it is. I enjoyed watching it, and I particularly enjoyed the interactions between Rey and Kylo Ren. Like, I believed in those characters, and I wanted to see where that story was going. I think that's one of the main reasons that I liked it and a lot of other people didn't, because I hear people complain about things which happened in the movie, and I'm like, oh yeah, that did happen. I'd forgotten about that. Like, I don't remember any of the stuff that people complain about until they tell me about it. And they're like, well, and then they go here and nothing happens for like half an hour. I'm like, oh yeah. Completely forgotten about that. I swear there is a point here. The reason I'm bringing this up is that I really love the throne room scene, and I think it is fantastically put together sort of cinematically, even though while the choreography is good, the execution of the choreography is kind of distractingly bad. The choreography is so overambitious given the number of other moving parts that are going on, with things being on fire and people wearing full-face helmets and giant cloaks and stuff. It was overambitious, I think. But the scene, regardless, still really works for me because I'm invested in the characters. This in some ways is the opposite. The choreography is great and it's executed mostly fine, but I care so little about the characters that I feel nothing. I feel nothing. I don't know if they wanted Snow White to be a kind of cipher, like a self-insert character, but even if they did, and she's supposed to have the personality of plain white rice, you need the prince to be charming. If you want an audience member to use a particular character as a self-insert, then you need a love interest that that audience member would actually be interested in. And Prince Alcott just isn't it. They meet in the forest and she's immediately taken with him because he's pretty, I guess, but he's so unlikable as a character that it's just like, nah, I'm good, thanks. And also, I don't know what they were trying to go for with the dialogue, but I don't think they succeeded, whatever it was. You could have got away with the slightly dodgy execution of some of the parts of the choreography, and even the rubbish dialogue, if the two leads had chemistry. But I'm just not feeling it. I'm just not feeling it. And so there's this really potentially cute and flirty and well-executed story told in the choreography, but I just don't care at all. I'm not gonna lie to you, it feels so good. It feels so good to do a fight analysis again. I am so happy right now. Yay. Obligatory reminder that Just Stab Me Now is out now. I hope you enjoyed watching this video as much as I enjoyed making it, and I will see you next time.